Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Today we have a few news stories about the Big Four accounting firms. Now, it was announced last week that E&Y is breaking up their audit leadership in the UK. They will have different leadership teams between audit and assurance lines of service. Now, this was initially a little bit confusing to me because I'm used to audit and assurance meaning the same thing or being part of the same line of service. But I guess in this case, assurance is the consulting branch of the audit unit of Ernst & Young in the UK. And if you try and go through the E&Y UK website and figure out the difference between the two, it's not really clear. It's just like a circle of links that all goes back to E&Y audit. And it doesn't make sense to me how this is going to work, but I'll speak about that in just a little bit. Now, the reason E&Y is doing this isn't because they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. They're doing this because of regulators in the UK. Regulators in the UK are pushing very hard on audit firms. They think that there are too many conflicts of interest because these audit firms are trying to get consulting fees from their clients. And they think that an audit firm should be independent. I mean, I think everybody thinks that, but in the UK, they want these to be separate. And the way E&Y has decided to address it so far is by splitting leadership between their audit and their audit consulting branches. And this is what's happening in the UK. I don't see this happening in the US because the US is focused on decreasing regulation right now. And I don't think this is a bad idea overall, but I don't think it will stop conflicts of interest because the Big Four partners all speak to each other and their bonuses are based on firm-wide profits and not just their segment. And most of these partners will try to do anything to help the firm at large to increase profits. And these partners are still going to be holding meetings where they speak to each other and brainstorm ways to make more money from their clients. And these discussions will still include discussions about how to get more money from audit clients. So I don't see this problem going away by this leadership change. It's a good step to appease regulators, but I don't really see how this changes the approach by the firms. These partners were already separate from each other and that they were responsible for their own revenues. So I don't see how breaking out a different leadership position is really going to change anything. Another piece of news for Ernst & Young is that Hertz, which is a car rental company, announced bankruptcy in the United States. And I spoke about this a few weeks back because there are rumors, but now it is confirmed that Hertz will go bankrupt. And this means that they'll no longer be a public company. Therefore, over the long term, they won't be paying a lot of money in audit fees. Now, in 2018, Hertz paid Ernst & Young $15 million in audit fees, which is pretty good. And then this audit fee dropped to $9 million in 2019, which isn't too shocking. And I'm sure 2020 will be around the same or less, since they will still need auditors to help them with their financials in this bankruptcy year. But the fees will go down over the long term, which means less revenue for E&Y. And if Hertz gets smaller and smaller, then they probably might switch away from a Big Four accounting firm and just go to a smaller accounting firm to save on fees. And the reason I bring this up is because all Big Four firms are going to be heavily impacted by looming bankruptcies. It's going to impact their audit fees because they might not get audit fees from public companies that go bankrupt, but also it's going to hurt consulting because these companies might spend a little bit of money on reorganization consulting for bankruptcy, but all other types of consulting will be slashed. So the more companies that go bankrupt, the worse it is for the Big Four accounting firms, and I think there's only more to come on this front. The last piece of news I wanted to discuss today was about Deloitte. As you remember last week, Deloitte was in a ton of controversy and lawsuits regarding their unemployment work. Apparently that didn't scare away California because California has awarded Deloitte a no-bid contract related to help with their unemployment website. And I find this pretty hilarious based on recent news that Deloitte is getting sued by several states over their previous unemployment work. And the contract is for $5 million, which is a pretty big contract for these times. And it's interesting that it was a no-bid contract, that California didn't put this work up for bid. And I'm sure this is just because they need help right now. There's a lot of people filing for unemployment and they're not getting it in enough time to help them out. The news about Deloitte's struggles with other states isn't the only news out there. Like California has a bad history with Deloitte as well. They previously had a contract with Deloitte that ballooned up to $110 million plus, and this was more than double the original estimate. We'll have to keep an eye on this to see if California has the same problems that other states had. As you might remember, there's reports in other states that Deloitte's work ended up in leaking of people's personal information. So there's some pretty huge implications here for California residents, and also Deloitte. So that's the news for today. To stay up to date on all the Big Four accounting firms news, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.